What happens when you get two guys from the street who absolutely love to eat and give them a license to rant? You get your hosts, John Pizzi and Mikey Sausage.
Johnny boy!
Mr. Sausage, how are you?
I don't want to move back and forth. You know, Hicks gets on there.
Hicks gets upset.
What's happening?
How are you?
Oh, I miss you so much.
Oh, yes, me too, Mikey. I haven't seen you in so long. I feel like, where's my sausage?
I know, right? You can't find your sausage as usual. You're missing me so much. I miss you. You're working a lot. You don't call me anymore.
I've been so busy.
I feel like a jilted woman.
I know. July. I got to tell you that July and August was so flying by. I can't believe we're already in the middle of August already. It's been going so fast. I had like 40 shows in July alone. It was busy.
I know it's been so long, but I still have the same other chin that I left you with. It's not like I didn't.
My triple is doing just fine too. It hasn't gone anyway. As a matter of fact, I've been eating very poorly all of July because I've been on the road. So I haven't had I haven't even been exercising. I feel like I'm losing muscle mass.
Yeah, I want to know how many chicken wings have been left on the highway.
Never mind in the highway. How many bones are in my car?
Your wife knows when you're in there.
Yeah, it's horrible. As a matter of fact, when the guy goes, you go get your car clean, and the guy goes in there with that hose, and all of a sudden you hear all the bones going. He goes, "Oh, you have not to change." I'm like, "No, they're chicken wings."
That's not quarters.
It's horrible.
That's quarter thighs.
Yeah, I eat too much fried food on the road, but I haven't had any of the fast food stuff. None of the McDonald's. I don't eat any of that junk. I just try to eat.
Now listen, I'm very, very excited about our guest tonight.
You and me both. As a matter of fact, I've been wanting to do this for a long, long time, and the man is so busy, and he's always got so much stuff going on. So we're never able to actually, hook up. And this is a special day.
But this is like this. I compare this, honestly, like legend, Billy Joel's been around a long time, right. And that legend, like this guy. We were younger guys watching Johnny Carson and Mike Douglas show, and then and the guy's still here. Right? and then we went and we saw him in the Bronx. And he amazed us. I mean,
he blew me away.
Right? Wasn't that great? I mean,
it was a great feeling. As a matter of fact, do you remember? I don't know if the whole show was great, but I remember at the end, the women in the back getting the goosebumps and the hair on the arm.
Some of them were crying, right?
Crying. He got people emotionally involved.
Yeah, it was crazy. And me and you, we sit there. We like, all right, how did he do this?
How's he do it? And at the end, we're all sitting and go, hey, we're all picking our nose at the end. It was actually really, really cool. And, I'll wait till we bring him in, but I got to tell you how I met Kreskin. It's a really odd thing. Being an entertainer is so weird because you're always traveling, and travel is where you just bump into people on the road all the time. And that's how I kind of met Kreskin. But when we bring him in, I'll reiterate that story.
We can bring him in, bro.
We can bring him in.
You ready?
I am. By the way, for the people that are watching this live right now, this is a privilege and a pleasure, and it's also something that I'm thankful for because I'm a huge fan of this gentleman.
And all you millennials wake up and learn about this man.
That's right. That's right. This is something that needs to be more experienced live at a live show. Besides the history in his books. So, ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the one and only, the Amazing Kreskin.
Guys, it is a pleasure.
Oh, there he is.
I want to say something, guys. If anybody's going to do the eulogy, I mean, not that I a long more time. It's great. And by the way, yes, we have met before. You're a remarkable person. And I'm not living in the past, but I grew up as a little kid with a person on the radio by the name of Edgar Bergen, who legitimacy to the idea of a little figure talking, what have you, and adding life. And you bring incredible life to your figures. You bring them to life, and that's a gift.
Oh, that's so kind.
One of the lost arts.
Thank you very much, Kreskin. Sausage making is very hard, and I take a lot of pride in that.
One of the lost gifts. I don't see that happening with many ventriloquists today because it, incidentally, you'll get a kick out of this, and this is only because there's a new movie out called New Jersey. It's got the title New Jersey, and it's a comedy that takes place on the day of years ago Orson Welles did a radio show based on aliens coming in, and of course it panicked part of the country. This was just before World War II. And I remember I used to sit with Orson. Of course, he's no longer with us, but I used to sit with him and we used to talk about the fact that he had this radio show on CBS at 9 o'clock. I didn't intend to talk about this tonight, but that's the good thing about live broadcasting. It's disappearing in television. There's no turning around. When something's interesting, you kind of move with it. And anyway, he was on at night, 8 o'clock, I think it was Sunday night, but he was on opposite Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy, so he had a very low listenership, even though he had done the great movie before that became very legendary. But that's not the point. On Edgar Bergen that night was an opera singer who was in the movies. And this is why his show created such gigantic panic. Some of the people weren't that much into opera, so they turned off the Edgar Bergen, Charlie McCarthy, Chase and Sambor Hour, and went over the dials and went to a program that hardly anybody listened to. It was Orson Welles, and he did the Mercury Theater, and each week he did a play. And this was the War of the Worlds. But the way Welles designed it, you guys can appreciate this. He designed it because in those days, most stations had bands and orchestras that played in different restaurants, and they were popular. And that's the way they bridged shows. And some shows dealt with only the bands. And you heard music, and suddenly you heard a man interrupting and saying, "We got a bulletin here in New Jersey. Something from outer space seems to have landed," and so forth and so forth and so forth. So those that didn't hear the opening of War of the Worlds heard it like an actual news broadcast. Some people ended up in the hospital. My father in Caldwell, New Jersey, was not listening to the radio that night. He was going to his barber, who was a friend of his, and the barber's closed on Sunday. And the barber said, "George, come on in, I'll cut your hair. We get to talk about things." He's cutting his hair, and the barber says, "George, what the hell is going on here? Look out the window." And on Roseland Avenue, they saw cars going down the street and trucks with mattresses on them and with all kinds. And George says, "This doesn't make any sense. There's no business today." People were leaving their home because they heard this news broadcast of these aliens, spaceships landing. So one day, I'm with Orson Welles in England. I was headlining at a theater. He came to see me. And I said, "Orson, you've been interviewed a lot about this. Tell me the truth, Orson. Did you have any idea this would have such an impact on certain parts of our public?" He didn't answer me. I said, "Please, Orson, I've known you, and it's so much in the past." He says, "Well, Kreskin, it's on the air in CBS in New York, which are all live people, phone people. They're getting calls, and these ladies didn't know what to do. And they finally called one of the heads of CBS. Someone said, "Someone needs to come over here. We don't know what to do. People are calling all over the place." One of the heads of CBS walks into the CBS building, says, "I'm going to go upstairs and have Orson interrupt and say, 'This is only a play.'" He goes upstairs to go into the studio and say, you got to just interrupt and say it's only a play. Except that Orson had the doors locked. We went off the air when the show went off the air. I had to hug Orson. I said, "That's brilliant. I thought you'd find it interesting, guys, because you're a ventriloquist, and it's something that changed from that turned into a national calamity."
Yeah, and it was a huge story at that time, too, and it changed the way people perceived radio after that, I think, as well, on television.
Yes, it did. They did not allow for a number of years any show to be done that was done like a news broadcast, because people could be turning it on later and what have. Today, my God, we got how many stations? The networks are losing their viewership because there's so many cable stations and successful, and like the shows you are making work, these shows build a following and what have you, and they're all over the place. It's an exciting time, you know.
It is an exciting time, but knowing Orson Welles, I mean, just sitting down, hanging out, talking.
Orson. I'm like,
he was, you know, guys. I got to tell you, guys, he was a tremendous fan of mine, and he was very interested in what I do, and He was a remarkable man, obviously a genius, because he knew how to capture the public. And I value it. Listen up, some people. I'm good. I got a book. I'm only mentioning it because a guy it's mentioned in that. It's a book I came out about a year ago called Kreskin in Real Time. It's my 20th book, but the introduction's written by Regis, who, as you guys would have to agree, is a legendary figure.
Yes. Yeah. Hold it up right in front of your face for a second, Kreskin. Let me see the cover of the book.
Actually, the face.
And Regis, by the way,
book is his face.
Regis mentions in the preface of the book.
So Jose, it says Kreskin. Hold it up a little higher so we can see it.
Real time.
It says in real time.
My comment on what's going to be happening in the rest of the world in the years to come. In the book, Regis.
I'm getting the book.
Yeah, we know you're good with elections.
But I did 105 shows with Regis, and you mentioned someone in the past. What were the people? Not only Carson, but who was the other person?
Mike Douglas.
Mike Douglas. I have the record of appearances. I did 118 shows with Mike.
Wow.
Can you imagine that?
Can you imagine that? I got to tell you one of the dramatic stories on the show. Every day, I did more than any other guest, even near that. But they always gave me about 25 minutes because in the beginning they discussed some topic. How do I feel about it? So at the end, but they said to me before the show, they said, "Kreskin, we're having Carol Burnett on, but she's not on in person. She's going to be. We don't even have a video. She's going to be on the phone out of California. Would you want to? Can you do something with her?" I said, I don't know, but I'm a fan of hers. I never met her. I'd love to go on. They said, at the end of the time you're on, we're going to call her on the phone. True story. So there's about 12, 14 minutes after the show, and they dial the phone, and Mike says, "You folks watching, you're going to know who this is immediately." And you hear her suddenly say, "Hi," and everybody starts applauding because she had a way of shouting and saying things and what have you. And we're talking with her. I said, "Carol," I said, would you look at something and concentrate on it? We're not on the air. I've never met you before. She says, "No, I watched you on Mike's show. I watched you on Carson." I said, "Would you look at something?" She says, "I've got my eyes on something." And I took a large chalkboard and I wrote something on the chalkboard. I handed it to Mike, and I told the crew before the show, I said, "Listen, this is not going to be incredibly accurate. I can't see her. I can't touch her where there's no proximity," and so forth. They said, "We understand." So I said, "Carol, tell Mike," he's holding a chalkboard, "what are you thinking of?" He says, "Kreskin, I'm not at home." She says, "I'm in the office of my agent, and sitting here, I'm at his desk. I'm looking out the window, looking at a tree." Guys, if you saw it, you know immediately, because Mike and the producers and directors knew. My face went real solemn. I put my head down. Obviously, it didn't work. It failed. And I said, "Mike, I have failed." And Mike said, "Can I show her what you wrote?" And I said, "Yeah." And it turned out it was a miniature little wooden figure. And she screamed. We didn't know what happened. And Mike says, "What's going on?" She said, "Mike, you don't understand. Yes, I'm in my agent's office." And I decided to look at that out the window. The entire time I've been talking to Kreskin, I've been holding this miniature figure in my hands. And that's what
Wow.
I can't even explain how, but my career, guys, is like an adventure, because I work with people from all walks of life, even ventriloquists. And by the way, ventriloquists we're talking to right now, guys, and all you viewers and listeners, I promise you, just to keep things balanced, I dare not read his thoughts on camera.
I have to say, Kreskin, people don't know this about you, and that's why I couldn't wait to bring you on the show. And because the way I met Kreskin was I was at the Newark airport, and it was a blackout in the middle of the airport before the flights went out. I don't remember what year it was. It may have been 97 or something.
I think it was a little bit earlier, but it was around that time, yes.
Early 90s, maybe.
That was the black. You remember that whole incident?
Right. It was a huge blackout. And what happened was I couldn't get on the plane. Nobody could get on the plane, and we're waiting to see if the electricity is going to go on. So I go and figure I have hours to wait here at Newark. What am I going to do? I'm trying to go to Miami to do a gig. And I walk and I wait online at TGIF to sit down and have breakfast. Yes. So I'm waiting online, and I'm standing there, and I see him standing there with a briefcase online. I'm going, "Oh my God, that's definitely the Amazing Kreskin. There has to be. I recognize those glasses, and that's him." So I walk over and I just say, hi, my name is John. I'm a comedian and I'm on my way to do the job. And he goes, comedians? I said, I'm a ventriloquist. He goes, I love ventriloquists. He gives me a hug. He says, let's have breakfast together. We sat down for 3 hours and just had the greatest time.
He just wanted you to pay.
John, guys, that's the great thing about this business. As you said, we sometimes meet people in the most unexpected places.
Yeah.
One of the dramatic moments of my life was for 5.5 years, off and on, I toured Saudi Arabia. And this is before all this turmoil and what have you. The American Oil Company had booked me all over the place. And by the way, none of us right now, any of us looking at each other, have any idea what wealth means. I mean, you guys, you can't even, driven to a performance in some theater and we're going on the desert and I see a Mercedes Benz on off the road in a ditch or something. I said, gee, what happened? Oh, the guy probably had an accident. He just drove back in the city and bought another one. I mean, the value was quite. So one day I'm in my hotel room and I get a call, and it's the first time I got unnerved while in Saudi Arabia. They said, Mr. Kreskin. I said, yes. They said, you're to come downstairs to the lobby in 15 minutes. I didn't know whether to call my road manager in another room or what have you. And I look at my watch. It's around 12 noon. And 15 minutes, I walk out and I don't know what, I'm on a high floor. And when I'm walking through the hallway, I have a tremendous sense of hearing. I could hear silence. I thought, what the hell is going on? And I get to the elevator and I go down the lobby. Now, I've been in this lobby now maybe 2 different years, and it's busy with 1,000 people from all over the world, oil people, what have you. The door opens. Guys, the place is empty.
Wow.
I look at the desk, nobody. I look at the check-in area, nobody. I look around, and I'm walking in this gigantic area, but there's nobody, and I see a table I never saw that in the middle of the floor. And somebody's sitting there. It's a lady, and she motions like this. And she motions to sit down, and I do. I see no other human being. We're the other 700-800 people that could fill this thing. And she says, Mr. Kreskin. I said, yes. She didn't understand what I do, but word had gotten around. She says, can you tell me about my future? And I'm starting to talk to her, and she seemed very friendly in a nice, quiet way. And I said, that's not what I do. I read thoughts. And every time I nodded towards her, in the distance at the other end where there was a doorway, I saw 2 heads popping out. As we're talking, I explain to her what I do and so forth. And at the end of about 20 minutes, she thanks me and she gives me a ring. And we say goodbye, and I go back to my hotel room and I call my road manager. He says, yes, Kreskin, I was told not to leave until you call me. I said, I don't know what's going on, but I've got this ring in my hand. Gentlemen, I did not show this ring to any human being alive.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you got married.
Oh, no. I didn't show it to anybody for over a year. A year later, I didn't even talk to, they had an assigned guide with me who I'd known for 3 years, the nicest guy. And he was actually Saudi. The next year I said, sir, I've got to talk to you about something. I described the scene. He said, Kreskin, which you don't know. And he says, I know what I'm saying because she's the only one who could do this. That person, when she came in, every single human being in that hotel left. Except your road manager. Yes, they told him to stay in his room. He said that place was totally empty. Cooks, chefs, workers, people staying there because the person who came to see you was the princess of the king of Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
And he said, I wouldn't be surprised if the king didn't even know that because he wouldn't let her come in. And that's who was talking to you about just your description. It's her and so forth. A year later, I had the ring appraised that she gave me. It was worth $80,000.
Oh my goodness!
So my career's been to think that there's been dramatic scenarios through the years, guys. I got to tell you.
Kreskin, can you tell us?
Wait, hold on, John. So the question has to bear: where is that ring now?
I don't have it with me. And one of something, gentlemen, I wouldn't feel comfortable having that thing around.
Yeah, that's worth a lot of money, huh?
Yes, it was worth.
They say you don't know what real money is until you go to a place like that.
You don't, because I would be picked up late at night. No, I'd be doing shows for British and English speaking audiences, and people came in and are living in certain towns. By the way, it's a different lifestyle, because at Christmas time, the walls of your window had to be completely closed so that no religious things, no Christmas things slid out that way. And I will tell you this now. When I would come, they'd have parties for me. All these people, the oil people in different cities in someone's home, and they'd open the doors of the refrigerators, and there's all this. They want some liquor. Now, liquor is against the law.
Yeah,
Saudi Arabia, but one of the greatest afflictions of the wealthy and the royalty is alcoholism. It's against the law. You have to understand, one of the most interesting experiences, folks, you want to know how we don't know how the real world necessarily is going. It took me 1-2 flights to realize this. We're coming into land, and I had to fly to Paris, and then to Paris to Saudi Arabia. And as we're arriving, I see these glamorous women in the most exotic clothes, 60, 70, 80, lining up to go to the ladies' room. I thought, that's weird. As they came out, they were wearing scarves over their heads. They were wearing capes, and all that wealthy, glamorous, sexy stuff had disappeared. When we left Saudi Arabia, women in these outfits, these very religious outfits, stand in line, and when they came out, they had all the glamorous clothing. We don't always know how half the world lives. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's great.
I can tell you stories.
I know you can. I want to know, where were you born, Kreskin?
I was born in the town of Montclair, New Jersey. I've always lived in New Jersey. I always tell people around the rest of the country, because I love the state of New Jersey. I just explain that this is the United States and that I live in a foreign country called New Jersey. No, but my brother was a policeman.
now.
Yes, my brother was a policeman 18 years in New Jersey, and then he had been in the Marines and saved someone's life during those years. We just lost him a few months ago. But this is my state. Let me give you an idea of schedules. 2 years ago, we haven't done this past year. 2 years ago, if you counted all of the radio, television, and concert appearances, this is 2 years ago, I did exactly in that year 364 appearances around the world.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
So my life, but people say you keep such a crazy schedule, because even when I'm not traveling, but this to me is an adventure. I'm not a workaholic. You understand what I mean? You guys in show business, though, this has got to be part of your life, because when I started performing, when I was, in grade school and then in junior high, I was getting big money, $5 a show. You know what I mean when I say that. And
that's what I was going to ask. So you didn't go to college. Did you go to college?
I went to Seton Hall, but in fact, my degree's in psychology. But in one of the seasons there, I got, thank God I got good marks. I only attended 4 classes. That's against the rules of Seton Hall. But it had a department of psychology, who, by the way, one of the guys that works on the Today Show reminds me, he says, Kreskin, he says, we didn't see you much each week or twice a week at classes, because we knew you were traveling. But do you remember? And he reminded me, the first year I was studying psychology at Seton Hall, I was asked by the head of the professor of the department to teach 2.5 weeks of classes. And here I was only, I was just out of high school, but so they felt it because of my experiences.
So, but how did you get into doing this? What made you decide that you were going to, did you start off doing what you do?
Yes. I decided someone gave me a comic book when I was 5 years old. And that comic was written by Lee Falk and was called Mandrake the Magician. And Mandrake was a tremendously successful comic book. In fact, in World War II, the Mussolini, because that we were fighting, and my family's from Sicily, but we were fighting Mussolini, and we were fighting the Germans, Hitler, and we were fighting Japan, and this comic was tremendously popular because Lee Falk wrote both Mandrake, and he also wrote another comic called The Phantom. And they wanted to ban it, and Mussolini's advisors said, no, the Italian people love this comic. So they took the script of the comic, they kept all the drawings that came from the Western world, and someone rewrote the dialogue. It was the great director, the great Italian director, Fellini. Wow. One of the failures of his life, he said to friends all through his life, I want to do a movie of Mandrake, but it would be trick photography. And this man was not a magician. He had hypnotic abilities. He had telepathic abilities. Let me tell you one of the greatest thrills in my life, one of the great moments of my entire life. 30 years later, Lee Falk is being honored at Sardi's restaurant. You know, Sardi's in New York.
Yeah, Sardi's.
He's been writing the comics since 1935. They knew that this influence because by the time it was
1935,
that's when he started writing the Mandrake.
Wow.
And people knew, because I talk about that was the pivotal point, because by 9 years old, I was starting to perform in limited ways and what have you. But anyway, that's not the point. They said, we're going to bring Kreskin to hear you speak, Mr. Falk. So here's in this large room at the Sardi's, 150 professors and graduate students are all asking about the comic. And I got to share this with you because it's a special moment in my life. And about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Lee Falk stops and said, gentlemen, I'm going to continue with our conversation, but I want to tell you, because I met this person a few minutes ago, since I've been writing this comic, the only human being who's come closest in real life to being my character is Kreskin. Can you imagine how that hit me? I can't talk about it now. But
yeah, that's some compliment, huh?
I've been reminded by people that were there, and did
you do magic tricks? Were you a magician?
I was a magician, but something happened when I was 9 years old. I was in third grade. Miss Curtis was our teacher. It was raining outside, and she said to the students, she says, well, you're not going to go out and play. I'm going to teach you a game. So she sent one classmate out, it was Jane Hamilton, into the hallway. We closed the door. She says, let's hide this beanbag. We hid in someone's desk. Everybody had a desk. So she pulls Jane Hamilton back and says, Jane, walk around the classroom. When you're getting near it, we'll say you're getting warm. When you're not near it, you're cold. If you're real close, you're hot. It's an old children's game, hot and cold. They played it. And I was disappointed I wasn't asked to play. And that day, I was obsessed. I was obsessed for many, many weeks after that. I walk home. My mother was shopping. My father was at work. And I walked to my grandmother's house with my brother. I said, go upstairs and hide this penny. Grandma was from Sicily. She didn't speak much English. I loved her dearly. Anyway, the bottom line is he calls me. They rented the downstairs. I walk up into this large, old-fashioned house, walk through this big kitchen, and I roam into my uncle's bedroom. He's at work. Climb up on a chair, and with my hand, because I'm short, reach behind a curtain rod and feel the penny. I had found the penny, and I forgot to tell my brother to talk to me, to say anything. Nobody said anything. I just got these images. My grandmother, being Italian, must have thought I had the evil eye. That was the beginning of my career. And in grade school, I did demonstrations. And then sixth grade, they set aside show and tell every Friday to play. And then
you were starting as a little boy. You were starting rolling around.
Well, in ninth grade at high school, in ninth grade, I did a public show, 2 hours in length. And it was a fundraiser. And amongst my subjects on stage was a Latin teacher who volunteered on stage. And 20 minutes later, nobody ever forgot this incident. I turned her into her, believing she was Liberace, and with her hands on a table was playing, not a piano, but the table, smiling, taking on the role of Liberace, and she had no memory of that when the show was over.
Wow. Hey, do you remember the point in time where you said, okay, now I made it? Do you remember, was there a turning point, or was it just slowly as you grew, your career grew?
Slowly.
Or do you feel there was one time where you said, This is it.
Because you gotta understand. I was already doing 2-hour concerts. When I was 14 years old, 15 years old, all over the area. But then something happened to me. A man heard about me by the name of Steve Allen. Most people don't know who he was. He was the greatest wits who ever lived. A wonderful man. And he heard about me, and he left the Tonight Show. Jack Park took over. He flew to L.A. And he was doing these crazy things at night. He took a bath in an ice cream pile of ice cream. But he was also a brilliant serious. And he heard about me, flew me out to L.A. True story. He says, this young man has a gift. He said, we're all interested in ESP. Welcome, Kreskin. I didn't have the title Amazing. Carson gave me that later. I walk out, guys. I didn't know any better.
And this was on Carson.
This is on Steve Allen's show.
Allen's show.
I'll tell you what happened.
Was that your first show that you did? Okay.
There were local shows in New York, but I'm
national show.
And all the college students watched him at night. And I walk out and I'm looking at the camera, but the lights in the 60s were blindingly hot. And I'm walking towards Steve Allen, and the lights are hotter and hot. He's 6'4" and standing on a dais.
Wow, he was that tall? I didn't know that.
6'3" or something. And I went over to shake hands with Steve Allen, tripped over the desk, and fell flat on my face. He wasn't a wise guy type. He said, "You all right, Kreskin?" Fine. And I got up and I went on. They gave me like 18, 20 minutes.
Wow.
But a man was watching that show that night because he heard a mentalist was on, and he always did the Tonight Show earlier, the Carson Show. All of them did it earlier. And he was home he was watching the show, and he saw the incident of my going over and falling over. And 8 weeks later, Johnny Carson created Karnak. That is me, that Karnak character.
Wow, yeah, that was one of my favorites, Karnak.
And the last show I did with Carson, we knew the show was going to end soon. And I said, "John, you've been tremendous." He was always protective of me. He never had let them rig anything, what have you. I said, Johnny, this whole voyage with you've done, thank you for establishing my name. He says, "Oh, the mighty Karnak," because I said, "Boy, you never forget your past in this business." Isn't that some story? True story.
Wow. I have just a couple quick things I want to.
Sure, I'll make them brief too.
That's okay. I know, because I love all these stories, and I mean, I could sit here and talk for you for days. You know that. And one of the things that people don't know about Kreskin, and I was very concerned about this. And Mikey, you were there as well. We had done a show together like several months ago, and Kreskin had never seen my ventriloquist act. And I can work family, clean. I work Orthodox crowds. I work children's shows. I work X-rated. I do roasts, etc. So this night I was doing like an really edgy show, and I thought, this is it. Once Kreskin sees this show, he'll never speak to me again.
I love it.
I know you're laughing. And what I'm making, the point I'm making is, a lot of people may not know this. This is a hip guy. He's not one of those guys that's old school and.
Yeah, but he's Italian. That's why.
No, it's the Italian thing. I think he's hip. He's a hip guy. I was actually afraid that you would be like, "Oh, he did dirty you." I don't go for that.
It makes me, if I went on the list of famous people, private affairs that have performed at through the years, and I love people. I'm very, by the way, guys, and I'd like to announce that when it finally goes together, I want to announce it among other shows on your show. In the near future, I'm going to be doing a radio show of my own.
That's great.
In a few weeks, I'm going to be doing a national commercial, and when you hear, I can't talk about it, when you hear the theme, you're going to say, "My God, did the company build itself?" Because you fit right in that role. Don't you know? I just the final details have been put down as of yesterday. I'm going to be writing my 21st book.
Oh my goodness! We got information here. We're privy now. We're privy to like some magical information.
Yeah. But you know what they said? They said to me, they said, "Chris, you have so many experiences. I mean, these are things you got to write and share them. You don't want someone years later to tell it because
21 books. How the hell you write 21 books?
Hey, you know what we want to know, Mikey? Me and Mike have been investing in cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, and other things. I want to know which one is going to be the winner in the future. This way we can retire.
You know, guys. By the way, one of the reasons, and you guys understand this, that I've I predicted the last four elections. In the case of the 2012 one, Jimmy Fallon, 1.5 years early. I gave them a metal box, and NBC put it in a safe. It was there for 1.5 years, and I predicted the correct results. But I never announced ahead of time the political things, because you know it's going to happen, guys. And I warn people in show business, they're going to blame you for you're supporting this person. Then if I predict something that so I keep out of it. But let me tell you what happened this past year. And it's one of the dramatic, unexplainable incidents of my life. I didn't want to get involved, because if you go on the internet, you see pictures of me with Trump because I performed in his home.
Oh, yeah.
Pictures of me with Hillary Clinton because I performed in Washington. So I said, I got to stay clear. Then a day before, 2 days before, who would care then? I said to my people, oh, you know what? Just to set the record straight, because all these polls are saying Clinton's going to win. Let me make my prediction. So they put in a store window in New York, a multi-million-dollar women's clothing store that's legendary, but that's not the point. A guy said, I'm going to put a guard there. It had a big safe. I said, this is only a small package. The day after the election, they brought the safe, the safe which they'd given me, but they brought the safe, and a guard opened it and said, it's been in. So, but before the show, one of the newsmen is saying, did you hear about Fox? I said, what the hell's going on? People are opening the windows saying, I saw you on Fox. I wasn't on Fox the past couple of weeks. He says, Kreskin, don't you know what happened? Guys, I can't explain this. In November of 2015, I was on a local show in Washington, D.C. on November the 7th, I believe it was, because I'm performing in the area. So they had me on in the morning. It was a news show.
Right.
And I was very tired. And when you look at this on my webpage, you can go to AmazingKreskin.com, AmazingKreskin.com. It's there. They gave it to me, Fox did. I'm on the show. It's 11 months before the election. They say, Kreskin, who's going to win the election? I was very tired. I'd been sent a news that something happened, which was grave illness, and I was preoccupied. And without thinking, I said, I can't say it. I don't want to get angry. I don't want him getting angry. I was just in his home not long ago. It's going to be lousy because not loud. It's going to be noisy. I said he's a great guy, but it's going to be noisy and everything. And I'm obviously talking about Donald Trump.
Right.
And I have no memory of ever saying that when they played it. I know I did the show. I have no memory because I've never announced the winner of an election. Psychologists said, Kreskin, probably because your preoccupation, your unconscious came through and revealed to an audience. But even though I see the show, I have no memory of ever stating that.
Wow.
That's amazing. And, you know, people don't know this either, too, Sausage, that this is the most hardest working guy in showbiz. I'm not kidding. If you look at the performance schedule, the radio schedule, the live shows, the writing books.
And I work all night. Last night, I've only had 2 hours sleep because last night I've already written 62 pages of my new book. When I get passionate about things, I like to move with them.
But tell us, Kreskin, how do you keep the passion alive for so long? What is the secret to your success of that? I mean, besides being a great entertainer, there's also the idea of growing along, keeping energy up. You have to keep your energy up.
I'll tell you, I don't mean this to brag. We photographed because Wednesday is National Book Lovers Day, and I've added a whole part of a building to my personal library, which is some 8,000 books. I read when I'm home. I read 4 books a night. I read 4. And Howard Stern made a big scene about a year and a half ago.
I'm not in the bathroom long enough to do that.
A guy calls in a media reading guy. He says, nobody can, that's not true with Kreskin. So Howard, I won't go into it because when you argue with Howard, he uses other terminology, which I will use to. He says, you keep your ass listening to the show. He gave me a book. I went off the show. I read the book in it takes me to read a novel about 12
Howard loves you too. I've heard the show. He loves you.
But I love to read.
Are you a speed reader? Do you read quickly or?
About 12 minutes to read a novel, about 20 or 30 minutes to read it. But let me tell you this. No, I don't skip. Let me just say this, folks, to understand the nature of what can be done with the mind. When you were going to school and you saw the word Mississippi, you didn't say MISS. Within a year, you saw it instantly. You saw the whole world. The word. We have learned to read out loud, and we were never taught not to read out loud. We were just taught don't say anything and read. And we read in our head. the way we speak. If you can see one word all at once, I can see almost a whole paragraph at once, and that means I'm not skim reading.
Wow, seriously?
But what about comprehension?
Wow.
Well, I read serious. People send me books to review because they want to put on the cover, this is what Kreskin said, those poor. No, I love to read, and I could not skim read. Well, when we get together, I'm going to come on the show with you guys live because you're good. You know what I like about, by the way, folks, and they don't want me to say this, but I want to tell you about their crew. They got good guys behind the screen. They're flaky, but they're good guys.
That's Rob Hicks, our producer.
You're going to enjoy the work.
How do you read books? 4 books a night? I can't fathom that.
How
don't you fall asleep when you're reading them?
I read 5 pages. I fall asleep.
No, I jog. I jog 20 minutes every night. I run because
you jog. You said,
yes, I know. I really do. I jog.
You jog like on the treadmill?
Yeah, jog.
He's got tremendous energy, and people don't know this. A lot of people don't know this too.
Does he give his age away? How old?
I'm 82 years old.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Guys, I'll tell you this. I've announced this in all my shows lately. I've announced, and everybody looks shocked at first. And I announced this in all my performances. I've announced my retirement. I plan to retire 10 days after I pass away.
Well, people don't know this too, Mikey. He every time you meet Kreskin, he shakes your hand, but when he shakes your hand, he rips off your arm.
I know. I love that about
It's unbelievable. And I don't think people realize he has a handshake that'll
I love that because that means that he's interested in meeting you. I like that. That's
Let me
very
tell you a
important.
story about when they did, and you could see the movie, the great Buck Howard. John Malkovich plays me in the movie, and Tom Hanks produced the movie, and it came out about 6-7 years ago. But Hanks' opening night on Broadway says, "I want to." He hugged me and said, "Thanks for letting us make this." The guy that wrote it had been a road manager of mine for years, a very fine young man and what have you. But anyway, so he wrote the story, and all the incidents in the movie take place. The love story is not me because I never treated women like that, but they had to make it colorful. But let me tell you what Hank says. He said, "I want to tell you the good and the bad side about making the movie. The public wasn't here." I said, "Bad side, I wonder." He says, "The good side is John Malkovich watched days of videos of yours to get your mannerisms down." I said, "What's the bad side?" He says, "So help me God, Kreskin. For 3 days, Malkovich shook hands with 30 people every day the way you do. He said, our arms were like we needed a chiropractor." True story.
That's pretty. Hey, so now, how many times you been on Johnny Carson a lot too?
88 times.
88?
Yeah.
Mike Douglas, Johnny Carson, who else?
118. Regis is 105 shows.
Regis.
And a few dozen shows. By the way, Jimmy Fallon is one of the nicest guys in the business.
David Letterman, obviously.
Oh yeah, they were one show. I come on David Letterman. He said something because they said to me, Kreskin, handle things the way you want. You've been in this studio before, with the other people. So Letterman said something. He said, Kreskin, I think I might be too tired for you to read my thoughts. And I put my hand on my head, and I ended up, so help me, lying down on the floor of the stage, crossing my arms and just dozing. That when they went to a break, Letterman said that couldn't have been scripted. That was the right thing to do.
Hey, but Pease, you know what the amazing thing is? Just like on Johnny Carson or on Mike Douglas, just imagine all the great guests that he was with on the couch or on the chairs and
I know, but it's a privilege. I mean,
this guy was like when the Rat Pack was around. I
got to tell you, I did a series out of Canada, which is due to be done again. There's about 30 copies of it on YouTube, but the series needs to be done now in present time. It was 5.5 years I was on the air with a half-hour weekly show. And one day on one of the shows, it was once a week, a half-hour show, and I had a studio audience. I'd be doing my thing, reading their thoughts. One show, something failed, and a week later, the head of the network, the CTV network in Ottawa, brought me into and there were six men there. Turns out they were all lawyers and so forth. I have nothing against lawyers. I just wish that most of them had been like Titanic. But anyway, so they're saying to me, he's saying, Kreskin, tell it, if something goes wrong, your major test failed, would you tape the show over again? And I thought in retrospect, I probably was very immature. I left and I was upset. And I called my manager who was in Easton, and I said, Lou, he says, I know they had a meeting with you. I said, Lou, I've never edited what I do. It has to be done live. He says, just stay quiet. A few weeks later, the head of the network ordered the staff of my show, and it went on for 5.5 years, never to touch anything I do. They said, you let Kreskin do it his way. He's kept that show honest. It's not been rigged, altered, or so forth. And I'm very proud, because people in the business say they never heard of any show that they didn't have control of tapping with it and so forth. But it kept the integrity. You know what I mean, guys? It kept the.
Hey, Kreskin, this is a weird thing too, but I believe you consider yourself to be married to showbiz in a sense, essentially.
A love affair.
Yeah.
I love the people I work with. I love show people. And, I perform, I said, Jill St. John's wedding, performing in a private, all things like this and what right. I go on and on with names. But what's neat? I got to tell you what's neat. I perform for lots of people in the business at their homes. And I say, God, you folks are just as enthusiastic as my regular audience. They say, Chris, you have to understand, your business is completely foreign to us. We sing, dance, tell jokes, but this is like another world. So we're like anybody else that comes to see you. And that was kind of a neat remark to say.
Do you believe that when you perform that you're giving something or you're getting something in return, or is it?
I'm getting something too. I'm getting something. You don't, what you gain in life and what people give to you, you have to share and give back to them. That's what's disappearing in our culture today. We're not reciprocating because human beings in their private life socially are not listening to each other as much anymore. They're listening to a box in their hands, and life is not meant to be one-sided. And that's I feel I have a love affair, and I have to share it. I have to give back in some way. Listen, I can't, no time now to talk about it. In the future, we will. I've been called in on 86 crime cases in my career. 86.
Wow.
Some were murders, some were what have you. I've done it because I feel I owe something back for what I've been able to do.
Wow, that's poignant.
I never knew that.
No, there's been very little publicity. I will tell you some very dramatic stories, and some of them, which will go in my new book, one in which I was almost killed by a homicidal person who
really
was me. But I've
that's enough about marriage.
Oh my God.
That's a joke.
Hey, has not, by the
Kreskin,
way.
how about this? Now, is this a sour point or not? What about the Uri Gellers and these other people that are spoon bending and all? How you don't have to answer that. How do you feel about it, if you will?
I'm not in that. Yeah, let me just say this. I respect and I'm not into that. I can't bend spoons with the mind or whatever.
Right.
I want to say something. I respect. I don't communicate with the dead and what have you. And some people believe they can. And yes, there are people all through these. Some genuinely feel that they can, and I respect them for this. I do have one slight problem, though. If a person, yes, and some seriously believe they're talking to the dead, but if a person really can talk to the dead, why haven't some crimes been solved by just communicating with the murdered victim and ask for the details? That would break the crime down in a matter of 20 minutes.
Agreed. And what about ghosts? Do you believe in ghosts?
Well, I don't necessarily believe in ghosts, but I'll tell you something. I'm not going to play games. I've been in homes because I've gone all over the world where I don't understand this. I believe a house can have a mood to it. I believe a house with a past, some rooms can have, because I've been taken through parts of homes and said something happened here, something happened here. I can't explain it. I'm not necessarily saying there was a ghost there, but I'll tell you, there are some pretty eerie phenomena. And for anybody to say that we have all the answers to life, hell, we don't. Just remember this, folks. If you think we know all the answers, for many, many years, one of the highest professions of mental illness were in the psychiatric profession. Right. There were 7 years where the highest amount of suicides were among psychiatrists. Don't feel that somebody knows all the answers.
What about aliens? What's your take on that?
Well,
I'm sorry to ask you this question, but I know they're really offbeat. I figured people may want to know what your belief is about that.
I had a hero in my life who was and on someday I'll talk about him in great length because he was one of the great influences in my life, even though I only knew him the last few years, but his influence in broadcasting, it was the most powerful figure in the entire history of broadcasting, which no human being in history has ever approached the power this man had. And the man's name was Arthur Godfrey. And I've been asked, or Steve Allen wanted me, he said, before he died, you got to write the story. The public does not know this man who the president had to come to him to run for office. That's how powerful he was in broadcasting.
Wow.
He told me, he says, Kreskin, he says, I don't know the answers. You know, I fly a plane. I say, I know you love piloting. He says, I've had some things flying next to me. There's no thing in this country or that was ever manufactured that was like that. There's more out there to know. So we're not the only. I don't believe right now we've had aliens on Earth, but I believe that there's outer.
Didn't they call him the old redhead?
That's right. That's what I can tell you. I could talk to you the next 3 or 4 hours because fascinating. But guys, where's the time gone? How much time has gone down?
I know, it's amazing.
Well, we're going to be talking in the future again, aren't we, guys?
I would love to.
Yeah,
we'd love to. We'd love to have you. I say I can't even get it out, Pizzi. How much stories this guy has? You could record for 5 days and still.
It's endless. It's endless. 21 books. He's a wealth of knowledge. He's been in showbiz forever. He has this love relationship. He's a hip guy. He's really cool. And again, something I don't know. You mentioned earlier about the millennials should know more about Kreskin. I don't know if millennials are as involved because they're so YouTube oriented and so cartoon.
Right. But you know what to do? Just tell them to go on YouTube and look up Kreskin and they'll see 30 half hours and some dramatic incidents. I'm going to tell you in the future some of the crazy things that have happened with famous people. But, I don't know where this time is. I could talk to you guys for hours. You're good. And by the way, you want to know one more thing because you will appreciate this. And I agree with Seinfeld, who doesn't want to, I love working. I've done over 1,000 universities in this country, but doesn't want to work them anymore because look at how, guys, who would have ever dreamt that at a university they would now censor comedians from talking about different topics. Yeah. That in the Second World War, people Bob Hope and could joke about everything.
Right.
The movie with Jack Benny where the character he was playing against was a caricature of Adolf Hitler. We were laughing at things. We can't laugh at ourselves. We're in trouble.
I agree. And you're right.
Crazy. I mean, Kreskin, just talking about that. Have you ever seen an election cause such divisiveness amongst people? You've been around a long time.
No. And you want to know something?
The Civil War.
I'm not going to say, but we can't be angry with someone who feels a different way. We can't be angry at someone who feels this way. I had a large family. On my father's side of the family in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, there were 84 relatives. I remember being there during election periods. There was some disagreement, but you went on and you did something beyond that. You did something that people did for years. Groups got together and families and joined around a table and celebrate the eating of food.
Yeah. It's true. That's the big problem phase is that they don't give you a chance to have a dialogue and try to understand the other person's point of view.
Get it. To sit and you got to sit and listen to what someone else has.
Of course. I mean, people feel a certain way. They're not making it up. So you feel a certain way. I feel a certain way. That doesn't mean you have to be mortal enemies. That's just everybody has a different feeling, a different opinion, and we can respect each other. But you never can learn unless you listen to the other person. Maybe you'll hear something that you never knew, or you say, wow, that guy has a point, or I never thought about that. People don't do that enough.
Some great philosophers said they never judged a person until they learned from the American Indians. They never judged a person until they learned to walk in their shoes. And we've got to keep doing this.
Man, that's true.
Guys, I
thank you.
Oh, you guys, we're going to see you again.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait. As a matter of fact, and I have to also personally thank you for all the holiday gifts you've always sent me. I have them sitting here. I have some over here.
Did you send you that crooked glass or something?
Let me just show this.
You guys be nice now.
No, hold on. He's going to go get it.
I cherish these things. And
every year he tells me.
Kreskin sent me this glass with his card in it, and it's bent.
It's
And the card, look at this. It's so great. The card is all white and he has his name embossed on it.
And that was very special.
It is very special. It's special to me. And Kreskin, I want to thank you for doing this. I hope you'll do it again because we have so many stories that we'd like to get out of here.
You know what I also want to say to you, because I say this to all the people that I feel good about and close to in broadcasting. You guys, I'm not going to say goodbye to you. Let's just say to be continued.
Okay, so pick and continue. So we got Kreskin in Real Time, the book that's out right now. And I get that on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Kreskin, AmazingKreskin.com. They can get it everywhere.
And you can look at my webpage, TAMazingKreskin.com.
And anything coming up anything really important coming up in the near future?
Things I hinted to you, but we're going to announce them in a few weeks. We'll talk soon.
You got it.
No, but what about anything else? Do you have any public shows coming up that people can come to?
I've got a couple there, and you know what? I should be. Let me just mention a couple on Wednesday. I'm going to be at the New Jersey State Fair here in Augusta.
Oh, great!
And on Thursday I'll be in. That's going to be in Bridgehampton. First, go on my webpage, folks, because
awesome.
I always worry about short-term memory loss, and mine started when I was 12. See you guys. Take care now.
All right. Thank you, Kreskin.
Thank you, Kreskin.
My pleasure. Thanks, Dan.
That was so much fun. Hey, Sausage, was that fun or what?
Yeah, he's a great guy.
And yet, I feel like I could put this guy on for 100 hours a day. I love him. Thank you so much. All right. Well, we're out of here. Let's
reflect 1 second. We have a couple minutes, right?
Do we have a couple? No, he's saying no.
1 minute. 1 minute. No, we got to go.
All right.
All right.
Well, we'll see you on the next one. We have a bunch of new people coming up, and I appreciate Kreskin being here. I want to thank him and thank him.
I felt like that was so fast.
It was.
All right. So till next time.
Take care.